Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. So as you can see today we are making a tier list. Yay, who doesn't love tier lists? So I just finished the first part of my Iron Manning all the Fire Emblem games challenge or series or whatever you want to call it, and that means that we just finished Fire Emblem 1 for the first time ever. And as I said in that video, I do want to make a tier list. But there is something pretty obvious that I want to mention before we start. Most of the tier lists that I made on the channel, in fact, all of them, I feel really confident about. I made ones for the GBA games. I think I made one for the Tellius games. I have played those and Iron Man those a bunch of times, especially the GBA games, so I feel really confident about my positions on the characters in those games. This game is very different. That was the first time I've ever played through Fire Emblem 1 at all. It wasn't in an Iron Man, so a little pat on the back for that. I feel like I have a pretty decent idea of what's good and what's not, but there are some characters that I didn't use at all and some characters that died early that it might be difficult to gauge. So this is going to be more just me talking about the characters and a little bit about the game. Certainly, absolutely, as always, feel free to disagree about any of my placements or anything like that. But yeah, I don't want this to take too long, so let's just get right into it. This will also be a really good exercise in me trying to remember which character is which, because these pictures are not amazing. Some of them, in fact, are actually identical, which I'll probably wind up putting just next to each other, because I think the few that aren't very different. So, yeah, let's get right started. So we have, right off the bat, we have Abel. Abel is one of our starting caps. I'm also going to be doing this for the most part on the fly, so I don't have like a structure to go by or anything. Again, it's going to be mostly me talking about the characters, and then I'm just going to put them where I think they should go. So Abel, I think, is an easy A, as most early Cavs are. He's really good. He's only slightly weaker than Jagen at the very beginning of the game. Him and Kane are definitely two of the best units at the beginning and throughout. I will say that I think swords in particular are really, really strong in this game. Also, pre-promote's ability to promote is really nice, and we'll talk about that probably throughout. And not Kane, Abel can use swords, and he can promote, which is awesome, and he's an amazing class. So I think easy A, maybe even S, but I have a hard time ever putting starting Cavs in S. So I think an easy A for Abel. Then we have, I believe this is Aaron. Now, Aaron is a choice recruitment along with Samson, who, I'm trying to remember which one. I think this is Samson. We'll burn that bridge when we get to it, but Aaron is, I think, definitely the better of the two, given that he is a paladin and Samson is just a hero. He has reasonable stats, about the same as Midia and Jagen, and is recruited quite a bit later. I still think that he can probably go in B. I think maybe even in C, just because he doesn't have a ton of, like, he's right at the tail end of his utility. I think C is probably a good position. I do think that Aaron is useful for the couple of chapters you get right after him, and you can use silver weapons, which is nice, but there's no like rescue utility in this game or anything, so I think C is pretty easy for him. Then we have Astrum. Astrum is a hero that you get actually not too late and has really good stats that honestly uphold in the end game. I could see Astrum being an A. I think I'm going to have him at the top of B. But yeah, I don't know, maybe even an A. His stats are really, really strong and remain that way. I think he's one of the better pre-promotes throughout the entire game. So I can see A, but I really want to make A just a really, really strong unit. So, but yeah, I think Astrum is quite good. Then we have Bantu. Bantu's an interesting unit. Normally I would write off a Manakete like Bantu, but the Firestone has infinite uses in this game. And Bantu, for a long time after you get him, and then the Firestone, which you get it before him actually, weirdly enough, he's basically just immortal, and there's a lot of utility in that. Now, eventually that stops, and his offensive output is not particularly good, but I think easily in B, to be honest. Like, he has so much utility. I didn't wind up using him too much, but I think so many different strats could utilize his potential for so many different chapters. Maybe he's even better than that, but yeah. Then we have Barst. Barst is a unit that looks really, really good, but something to know about this game is that axes absolutely suck, and axe users also suck. He can't promote, which is a really big, sort of unfortunate sticking point, and axes weigh a ton in this game, meaning that even his pretty good speed stat isn't actually that fantastic. But he does have good defense growth. His growths across the board are actually quite good, and he's pretty useful. I think I want to put him in C just because, again, he can't promote, and there aren't like that good of axes in this game, and especially in the end game, you can't even buy axes anymore. Perhaps he should be lower, but I think he's good enough for a while after you recruit him, kind of like Aaron, to where he belongs in C. Next up we have, I believe this is Jake. If I get any of the characters wrong, this is just my laziness of not looking this up. I think this is Jake, one of the two ballisticians in the game. I don't really know how good ballisticians are supposed to be in this game. In Shadow Dragon, or sorry, the remake, they're amazing because they have siege tome ranges, basically, which is, of course, really, really useful. But in this game, they're really just archers with less movement. So yeah, I'm going to put him in D. Maybe ballisticians are better than I'm giving them credit, but I had a really hard time. I actually didn't recruit Jake because my Sheeta died. I will admit that, but I don't think ballisticians are that good. Next up, we have Boa. Boa is very similar to Wendell in most stats, but he's recruited a bit later. Wendell is amazing. Boa, I still think is amazing. I still think I'm going to put Boa in A. Maybe not above Abel. I don't know. Yeah, maybe not above Abel. He's awesome. His speed with the lack of weight on most magic tomes in this game means that he'll double even into the end game. You don't need a lot of magic. You don't need any magic, in fact, because magic isn't a stat in this game. So he deals just as much damage as your Merrick or your Linda, as long as he can use the tome. He also uses all the staves. There's amazing staves in this game. You know, another thing about it, I think I even want him higher than Abel. Maybe he should be an S. Wendell is definitely going to be an S. But yeah, absolutely amazing. He's just recruited a bit later. That's the only reason. But absolutely amazing unit. Then we have... Oh, Cord and Board look the same. Okay, I'm going to put them both in D right now. There's really not, I think, a huge difference between these two. They have all the same problems as Barst, except they are just simply weaker. Maybe they should be ahead of Jake because they can actually offer some utility. By the way, I'll just say this right now. I'm probably going to put nobody in F, just because, to me, F tier is units that are utterly useless. Like, they can't do anything. Wendy from FE6, I think, is the best example. Cannot do a goddamn thing. And sure, she actually can be kind of good if you train her, but it takes so long. I don't think there's anyone like that in this game. Sure, like Cord and Board, the fact that they can't promote is kind of unfortunate, but they can actually do things. So I don't think there's really a character in this game that can do literally nothing. Next up we have, I believe this is Sheeta, or Seda. Sorry, the translation patch I was using was a little bit different, so I'm probably going to be pronouncing some of these names a little bit different. But yeah, in Shadow Dragon, in the remake of Shadow Dragon, Sheeta is amazing, or Seda is amazing, because the Wing Sphere is so powerful and it's so useful for so long. She does not have that in this game. I don't really know where I should rank her. Obviously, her class is absolutely amazing. I think that should probably put her in A. There is no rescuing or anything in this game. It's hard to really say how she compares to, like, Katria, for example, who's probably Katria and Paula, who are the next best Pegasus Knights. But she's recruited so much earlier. I think she's pretty easily an A. There's a lot of utility you can get out of her, which I like quite a bit, even though she did die for me. So next up we have, I think this is Caesar, because I think Rad has pink hair, although I can't seem to find him right now. Yeah. So Rad is the color shifted version of him. I think Caesar is also a pretty easy D. Maybe Caesar and Rad are the closest that we're going to get to F. I don't know. They are recruited kind of late for how strong they are, and they're not very strong. So I could see putting him in F, but I still think he can offer some decent utility. And on my playthrough, I actually did train Rad really late, and he still wound up being pretty good. So I'll just get Rad in here too now that we're talking about it. They come together, and they're both mercenaries, really low-level mercenaries. Caesar I don't think has very good growth, whereas Rad does, but both of them are pretty bad, to be honest. But they can offer you a little bit, so. Next up we have Kane, who I'm just going to put right next to Abel. I wound up training both of these. My Kane died, but he was a lot better than my Abel. He actually got crit. It's funny, he got crit when he was level 20, right before I was about to get my first Knight's Crest, which is kind of funny and sad. But yeah, I think Kane is better than Abel, maybe? I don't know. They're the Christmas Cavs, right? They're both good. I'll put them together. Next up, we have Caster. Funny story about Caster. I was not aware how the promotions work in this game, so I was actually training my Caster a lot. And then I got him to about level 10, and somebody commented on one of my videos and told me that you can't promote him. So, yeah, he's pretty bad. Maybe a little higher in D than these other units, just because that bow utility is actually fairly nice. Like, even very late in the game, he can still offer a little bit of combat when it comes to dealing with Wyverns and stuff. So, maybe even C. I don't know. Definitely not C. Next up, we have Midia, who's basically just Aaron, but is recruited a bit earlier. I actually was really excited to train her because she actually has pretty good growth, but she never wound up being that good for me. I think I'll put her in C just like Aaron, but a little bit higher. I do think she's quite a bit worse than Astrum, so I don't think she belongs in B. But she can use silver weapons immediately, and she does have fairly decent stats, so there is the chance she should be in B, but I'll put her in C. Then we have Daros, who's basically just the same as these guys. Can't promote, doesn't have very good stats, and is axe locked. Not a great combination. Okay, let's put these guys together. So, not in C, definitely not in C. This is, I believe, Dolph and McKellen or something like that. These are two knights that you get along with Boa and Midia, so kind of late. Their stats are okay. They can offer some combat, which is, again, the reason that I'm not going to put them in F. But they are pretty bad. The knight class is really bad in general, and yeah, they're not particularly useful, but can offer you a little bit of combat if that's what you need. Also, these faces, man, like, do people really want to use these two? Like, look at them. These are like villains. It's funny. Next up, we have our last knight. This one is interesting because he's recruited early enough, and the beauty of using swords is that none of the pirates or axe users for a long time have any speed. So his low speed still means he can double, which makes him actually a pretty valuable unit. But he has all the same problems that a knight has. If Barst belongs up here, I think there's a chance that he should as well. I think maybe this makes sense. I'm not really sure. I do think he has more utility than basically all of the units in D, but perhaps he just belongs at the top of D. Not really sure. But yeah, the ability to double is quite nice. Then we have Elise. Elise is kind of weird because you recruit her so ridiculously late. She is really useful. She's the only one that can use the Alm Staff and can immediately use a lot of your stronger staffs, which is nice, but she's recruited so late. I think I'm going to put her at the top of D. She is really useful for the 2 chapters that you actually get her on, but her recruitment is so late, it's really hard to have her any higher. Next up we have, I believe this has to be Katria. So Katria is interesting because she will wind up better than Seda, and she is a pretty strong unit, but she's also recruited kind of late, and she's a little bit weak. I think I'm going to put her in A, but just underneath Seda. Her class is obviously amazing, but I like the much earlier recruitment of Seda. So I do think that she belongs in A, but perhaps just a little bit lower than Seda. I think this makes a lot of sense. Next up, we have Gordon, who really fulfills about the same purpose as Caster. Now, you can promote him, whereas you can't promote Caster. Perhaps that means he's a little bit stronger, but I don't really think so. He's going to be able to offer about the same stuff that Caster will, and he's difficult to train. So, yeah, I think about the same. Caster has slightly better, I think, bases, so I'll have him a little bit higher. But, yeah, basically offering the same stuff. Then we have Goda, who is very similar to Elise in the sense that he's extremely useful, but recruited on the last chapter. I always have a hard time rating Goda units, which is sort of the archetype of him. I think I'm going to put him 1 higher than Elise. So Elise is at the top of D. I'll put him at the bottom of C. I don't really know. Again, it's really hard to compare a unit who's extremely useful for 1 chapter with a unit who's like Barst, who's like pretty useful, but for like 5 or 10 chapters, you know? I don't really know. Next up, we have Harden, who I do think is worse than Cain and Abel, because he's recruited a bit later, but will wind up, I think, being about the same in strength. So I think I'll put him at the bottom of A. You could also put him in B, I suppose, but I think he's about the same as Cain and Abel, just recruited later. To me, this is kind of like the Katria and Seda situation, where... but in this situation, Katria's actually wind up better. I don't know. I think Harden and A is okay. Harden, Cain, and Abel are all like extremely strong units in this game, but Harden is recruited quite a bit later. Maybe it belongs at B. I don't know. Then we have Jagen, who I think I'll put. Should I put him above Boa? I'll put him above Boa. Jagen's weird. Normally, Jagen type units are always number 1 on my tier list. Just default, get him at number 1. But there's a few reasons that I don't think Jagen deserves that. Number 1 is there's no hard mode to this game, meaning that the beginning of the game is honestly just really easy. In Shadow Dragon, Jagen is, or sorry, the remake, I keep just saying Shadow Dragon, the remake, Jagen is extremely important, because if you're playing on Hard 5, you really need him at the beginning of the game, and the Silver Lance is really useful and all that good stuff. But even then, he's not that much stronger than Cain and Abel at the very beginning. In this game, you really just don't need him that much, and Cain and Abel will surpass him, like, very quickly. He's still awesome, he's still stronger than them for a while, and will still remain good, even probably into the mid-game, to be honest, but I don't think that he deserves the top slot in this game in particular. Next up, we have the other ballistician, who you get a little bit after Jake, so I think I'm going to put him 1 under Jake, but yeah, again, these two are about the same to me. I may be totally misrating balisticians. I basically never use them in this game, but I just don't really understand how they would be good. Next up, we have George. I like George a lot. He's a lot like Astrum, but recruited a lot earlier. I think I'm even going to put George in A. Maybe he belongs in B along with Astrum. I may be putting too many people in A. But yeah, I think George is amazing. His solid speed stat holds up throughout the whole game. He's bulky enough to, take a lot of hits for a long time. He hits fairly hard and can use silver bows immediately. One of the other nice things is that basically every bow you get can just go directly to him, because both Gordon and Castor suck. And bows are really good in this game because there's a lot of wyverns that you want to fight. So I think George is awesome. If he was a better class, I'd probably have him much higher, obviously. But yeah, I think he belongs in A. I think he's awesome. Next up, we have Julian. Opening doors in this game is actually really useful, and Julian's going to be your best bet at this. It's hard to rank Thieves because it's a utility unit, but you really are going to want to open those doors, and door keys are pretty tedious. I think I'll put him in B, but I'm mostly just doing this because I don't have a lot of units in B. I think he could be in A, and I'll grab, I think this is Rickard, right? I'll grab Rickard right now and put him next to him. These are basically the same unit, but Rickard is recruited later, but they're both about the same. I do think their Thief utility is really high. Maybe they belong higher. Not really sure. Next up we have, I believe this is Maria. Now Maria is the third cleric that you get. I think, so her weapon level I think is pretty high. I do think that she's worse than Lena, just because Lena, oh no, I'm sorry, this is Lena. This is Maria. Yes, because my Maria died actually. Sorry, Lena I think is the best of the clerics, because she can use warp and a lot of the really strong staves, and she can use hammer, and it is unique to her, which is pretty useful staff in the late game. The question is, do I want to put her in S? I don't know that I want to put her in S. I'm really sick of putting people in A, though. Staff utility is so important in this game. Oh, man, I really don't know. I'll put her in A. I feel like I'm going to wind up putting so many units in A. I do really like her, though. Like, again, hammering is nice, although kind of a niche thing, but the fact that she can use warp immediately is really nice. She's much better than Rice. Next up, we have Linda, the second mage that you get in the game. If it weren't for Aura, I would probably say that Linda is a really middling unit, but Aura is so awesome. 20 might, considering there's no defense in this game, is amazing. The chapter Wooden Horses, basically all the balisticians on that chapter have 20 or less health, so she annihilates them. I don't think that she's like that exceptional of a unit per se, but Aura is so nice. I think I'm gonna put her ahead of Bantu, but behind Astrum here. Maybe you could even do this. Maybe you can do that. Aura is so good. And obviously, once you promote her, she can use stabs, which is awesome. Mages are also really good at using stabs because they build up their weapon level as mages, and then they just get to use all the best stabs. So maybe she even belongs higher, to be honest, but I think B is a pretty reasonable place to put her. Next up, we have Lorenz, who I unfortunately could not recruit on my playthrough because Seda died. So I actually have kind of a hard time rating him. I think given his bad class and his pretty mediocre stats means that I'll probably just put him in D down here. I think he basically offers the same stuff all these other units do, where you can use him for combat for a little bit, but it really isn't that useful. But yeah. Next up, we have Maria. I think I'm going to put Maria just under Lena. I do like her starting weapon level, which allows her to use a lot of the really good stabs, which is really nice. But I like the fact that Lena can do a lot of the same stuff, except she can also use the hammer and stuff, so I think these two should be close. They're both really, really good. Next up, we have Marth. It's really bizarre to do this, but I actually think I'm going to put Marth in S, just because, like, they do enough great stuff for him. Number one, swords and being sword locked is not that bad in this game. Swords are extremely nice, and 2 range isn't as important as it is in some other games. Also, the ability to buy rapiers is so powerful. I mean, Marth basically has an infinite supply of effective weapons against all mounted units. I shouldn't say all mounted units. Cavaliers, paladins, knights, and generals. And considering the fact that Rider's Banes are not effective against paladins, your only way to be effective against paladins is that rapier. He's also the only one that can use the Mercurius, which is sort of the S-rank sword, really powerful. And he's by far your best bet at killing Medius, given that the Fall Chain is the only thing that's effective against it. Yeah, I don't know. It's really bizarre to put Marth maybe the best lord in all of Fire Emblem. That's probably not true. I think some of the more modern lords are really good. But yeah, Marth is amazing in this game, and I honestly think deserves S tier. His movement kind of sucks, but you get boots and stuff. Maybe A. Maybe A. I may be going a little bit too far with him, but get him up there, you know? Next up, we have Roger, who is another knight that you get. I don't think he's as good as Draug. I think he probably offers more combat than, like, these guys. I think he's on the top of the units that will likely never see any combat, but can. Roger's sort of that same thing. But yeah, he's not very good. He's basically just the same as the other knights, except recruited a bit later than Draug. And so we have Merrick. I really like Merrick. Where do I want to put? It's really hard. I think definitely A. I'm not really sure where to put him. So Merrick has the Excalibur Tome, which, similar to the Aura Tome, is really, really strong. It only has 13 might, but it doesn't weigh a lot. It is really good at killing bosses, especially in the mid-game. And then he has all the same benefits of Linda, where he can promote and use stabs. Maybe he should even be higher than, like, George. I really like George, though, because he gives you immediate utility. I'm actually going to put Harden at the bottom of A. I think that makes more sense. Yeah, I don't know. I like Merrick a lot, but I don't think more than these other units. Next up we have... Oh, who do we have? Hold on a minute. I seem to have confused myself. Because this looks like Midia, but this is Midia. So who is this? I don't know. Okay, let's move on to the next person. This is Minerva. I don't know who that is. I'm totally drawing a blank. What the hell? Okay, this is Minerva. Minerva, I didn't use Minerva much, but I think she's good. Like, she seems like a good unit. I think I'm going to put her just under Astrum. She's recruited pretty darn early, and she's an amazing class, so it's hard for me to say that she's really that bad. But I really never deployed her, so I'm not really sure where she should be. But she's a better class and recruited early than, like, Medea and Aaron, so I think she belongs there. Next up, we have Samson, who's just really a worse version of Aaron. I still do think he belongs in C, because he can do the same stuff that Aaron can do. Aaron's just a better class. Maybe I should even have him close to Aaron. But they're both pretty mediocre units. Then we have Agma. I like Agma quite a bit. He can promote, which is awesome. His stats across the board are pretty good, and swords are good. Unfortunately, my Agma died. I think I'm going to put him at the top of B. I don't think he belongs in A. To me, to be an A, you have to have something unique, like an amazing class, like the Cavs, or like the Excalibur Tome, like Merrick has. Agma doesn't have any of that, but he's a pretty good unit, so... Next up we have, I believe this is Paula. I'm just going to put Paula right next to Katria. I don't really know how Paula compares to Katria. I trained Katria, not Paula, but her bases are better. And then I think she actually has better growths, except for speed, but her base speed is pretty good. I think she's about the same. I think she deserves there. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Roger. Oh, this is, okay, I actually don't mind where I put him. This is an early cab that you get. Maybe he should be like here, just because he is actually a pretty good class. Oh, this is probably Roshi or Roshia. Yeah, that's probably what it is. Okay, why don't we just put all the calves? I think this guy's also a calf. Yeah. So 2 of these calves come with Harden in his squad, but they're pretty weak. And then the other one is recruited by Lena fairly early, also pretty weak. I think they belong here just because their class is really good and they can offer some combat. But their growths are pretty mediocre. I think actually just because of their class, they should maybe even be higher than like Draug and Barst and stuff. I don't know. They're calves. I mean, calves are good. This one is Roger, which I already talked about Roger. I'll be putting him where I was supposed to put Roger. Actually, wait, is this Roshia? Oh, is this... Wait, no, I think this is Samson. Oh, this might be Nevere. Oh my god, I'm losing my mind. I really should have looked this up beforehand. Okay, I think this is Samson, but all the same stuff applies. I think this is Nevere. I thought Nevere had red hair for some reason. So Nevere, he's just like a weaker Agma, but I think he's about the same. I think I'll put him at the bottom of B. Again, I like the fact that he's recruited early and can promote. He's a decent unit. I didn't train him, but I think he's pretty good. I don't know who this is now. That might be Roshia. I don't know who this is. I don't know. These two are Wolf and Sedgar. In the remake, Wolf and Sedgar are both awesome because their growths are extremely high. In this game, however, I guess Gordon actually has the same sprite. That's funny. In this game, however, they're not. The fact that they have a good class, I think, probably means they deserve to be at the top of D. Maybe they're even a little bit better than that. Maybe even into C, just because they are good classes. But they're pretty weak. Tiki. I actually think Tiki is awesome. You do need to give her a little bit of experience at the beginning, but once she starts rolling, she's amazing. And the Divine Stone is infinite. Do I want to put her in S? No, I think she's too weak at the beginning to be an S. Maybe just at like in A, but like here, something like that. I really like Tiki. If you didn't have to give her some levels to begin with, I think she could belong in S. But it takes a little while for her to get going. So, oh no, wait, this is either Wolf or Sedger. So who are all these people? Oh, one of these is Thomas. I forgot about Thomas. Yeah. Okay, let's say this is Thomas. Thomas sucks. Yeah, I don't know. I'll put him down here. He's with the group of people that, like, can do something, but you have to actually force him into combat. So yeah, I think down there makes a lot of sense. Wendell. Wendell is absolutely amazing. Should maybe even be higher than Marth. I don't know. Let's put him higher than Marth. Super strong character. His speed, all the same stuff I said for Boa. His speed is high enough to double throughout the entire game. His bulk is at least good for a while. He can use all the good staves. Can use all the good magic tomes. He's absolutely amazing. Really, really strong unit. Love Boa. Or love Wendell, also Boa. Next up we have Zane. Zane is another really interesting one to place because Zane's really, actually, Rice is, I don't know why I skipped him, but Zane is really powerful. Basically, Zane's thing is that he can copy one of your units, and as long as you equip him with the items that he would need to be that unit, he's just a copy of your best unit, right? If you have like a really strong Kane, you just get a second Kane. That's really strong. He is recruited a bit late, but I think he's a really good unit. I'm gonna put him at the top of B. I think he can maybe go in A. I don't know. He's really good. And then finally we have Rice. Rice is definitely the worst of the clerics, mostly because his weapon level sucks. I don't know where to put him. He is good for a while, but you get Lena and Wendell relatively early, so you're not stuck with him for that long. I think I'll just put him in like B somewhere. I don't know. He's okay. And then this character I think might be Roshia, but then I don't know who this other character is. Okay, I took a short little break there because I didn't want to leave this with just having no idea who this unit was, so I looked it up, and I realized that I just completely forgot that Est was a character in the game. So this is actually Katria. Est is the one that I put here. Yeah, so Est is the final Pegasus sister that you get. Pegasus Knight sister. Actually, she shouldn't be up here. She is sort of that Est archetype where she's recruited really late with low stats, but she has good growth. But I really think it's hard to ever use her. I think I'll put her at the bottom of B. She's still a good class. But she's less useful than like all these other... I'll put her here. Est is like the cutoff. Everyone above Est I think is a genuinely useful unit. Everyone below Est either has very minimal utility like Goda and Elise, or is just a bad unit. I think that's a pretty good way to put it. Est I think is still a good enough class to belong up there, but yeah. So yeah, that's my tier list. Again, if you disagree, totally fine. Please let me know. There are some characters and some utilities, some classes that it's really hard to rank. I only have the 2 characters in S, which is interesting. I could see maybe putting some of these other units up there. Don't really know. But yeah, as always, thanks everybody for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you had a good time, and I will see you next time.